Hello, welcome to ComplyPlus Presents. We're here for another edition this week at our studio here in Coventry, and I've got Richard alongside me again.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back.
Yeah. So today, there's obviously been some interesting topics going on in the world of health and social care, and with the new format we're sort of doing now in this studio on a weekly basis is we want to talk about things that are happening right now, things that are affecting people, whether that be people who work with us or people within our network or people really in the industry overall. So today we're going to look at the Sir Julian Hartley's vision for the CQC Way, which has been talked about quite a lot this week. I've seen several posts even on my own feed on LinkedIn and even within different news outlets. So maybe, Richard, you could give us, as the person with the occupational background, what this means and what's this in aid of?
Yeah, so Sir Julian Hartley is the CEO of the Care Quality Commission. As you know, the Care Quality Commission has faced quite a lot of challenges over the past few years, and last year there was a clear out, actually, new leadership coming in, and bit of confusion as well in the sector because we'd just gone through the single assessment framework. How is it going to work? What about the portal? There've been a lot of issues and
delays as well.
Last year, yes, CQC was declared unfit for purpose, which we all knew in the sector. It's just that I guess people were not brave enough to go out there and say, well, this organization is not fit for purpose. But everyone you talk to privately would admit that, right? So it's, in a way, it's refreshing that he sort of come on head on, to address the issues and admit as well the failings. So starting from that point, then I guess it gets people maybe thinking differently, realizing actually that the new leadership at the Care Quality Commission is keen to address all the issues failing, some of these legacy issues, and work with the different stakeholders. Because I think sometimes there's a sense in health and social care that regulators and these public bodies are talking to themselves. Even for us as companies in this sector, quite established, sometimes we're left out of the conversations.
Yeah.
But lately, I've seen an interest, people from NHS England, people from Care Quality Commission, from local authorities reaching out to us and realizing actually that the whole ecosystem matters.
Yeah.
Because if you talk in an echo chamber, you listen to yourself. You don't get any other views.
Yeah.
So
your blinkers, yeah.
Yes, obviously the proof is in the pudding always. What they're going to do and how he's going to set out this vision and actually what it means in practice. But definitely the regulations in health and social care in the UK have failed all the stakeholders. And it's time for change. NHS England, also the CEO of NHS England, Amanda Pritchard, resigned last week.
Yes, that was another big...
Yes, that's another big story. Yeah. So it's almost like another week. There's a big issue going on every week.
It seems to be that pattern at the moment in 2025, doesn't it?
Yes, but I guess we needed this. And for us actually, we can't not talk about this. It's something that we are committed to doing now. To say, look, all these things that you see on the news, or sometimes you don't see so much, because everybody's talking about Prime Minister going to Washington and Ukraine and what's happening in the Middle East and issues that matter to people here in Britain, actually health and social care, adult social care, children's services, GP practices. Those issues get pushed back.
They do.
The news cycles.
A lot of people, I think, even in past, votes, a lot of it is what are people going to do with the NHS? What are people do with health and social care?
That was a big issue for the elections.
It's always a big voting, a voting stick in a way. So if we look at the, this CQC Way, there were several sort of themes discussed from Sir Julian Hartley. I know what we've done for today is we've tried to break some of those down. And the first of those was restoring trust in CQC and almost a recognition of past failures. So what was your take on that, and what were the key takeaways for people that just want the headlines in a way?
Yeah, it's refreshing because what Sir Julian Hartley there has done is to acknowledge what all of us in the sector have always known
for several
years.
For a while, yeah.
Regulators cannot regulate in a vacuum. They can't just put regulations out there without engaging with people meaningfully, without taking all stakeholder views. It's not just about NHS England and CQC and all these big bodies that are at government's length. You need ideas from everyone. And where failings are found, they must be acknowledged. And I think that's a really good leadership and a good start. So for me, it's a positive intent. Him starting out like that, actually, it's refreshing to see a leader do that.
Yeah.
So CQC is not delivering strong and credible regulation. We've known that for years, right? And it was established really firmly last year. Providers, stakeholders, and public have lost confidence.
Yeah.
In public services, regulated by the Care Quality Commission and other regulators. Even Ofsted was found to be failing as well.
Unfair
right?
as well, yeah.
So the ability to assess these services fairly and efficiently, I think for a long time, people have known that CQC was failing to do that. And obviously, when failures are acknowledged, there are no sacred cows in the room anymore, right? We can discuss about
Cards
them
on the table,
openly, head on. And I think that's really good. So the admission is vital, and it prompts questions to sort of say, look, we don't want to say, look, why has it taken so long for CQC to acknowledge systemic issues? Right?
Yeah.
Because we could do that, but then where do we go?
And he's the new person coming in as well.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
You don't want to dwell too much.
We've got to give him benefit of the doubt to say, look, that's a good starting point. And even West treating, the Secretary for Health and Social Care, you don't have to agree with his politics or of his way of doing things, but there seems to be positive intent. Leadership of Department of Health and Social Care, the government overall, and also even today, this morning, the GPs are getting more funding to address some of the issues. So for me, actually, it's been 2 weeks of very positive things. Even the resignation of the CEO of the NHS England, it's a good thing. So all this is important. So structural barriers within CQC, what have they learned, actually? Because I'm sure the new leadership in CQC coming in have seen more than what we know about those barriers within, systemic barriers within the system. And rather than asking why they were not prevented, we're saying, look, what can we do now to build on that going forward? And, he's talking about improving transparency. And, of course, there will be skepticism because people have heard similar language before. Say, we're going to be more transparent and we're going to talk to all stakeholders. But for him now, really, I think it's a good start. And I'm keen for, as an individual, as a service user, as a healthcare professional, but also, for us being in this sector, we want to wish him the best and work with him. We work with the Care Quality Commission to see how we can all contribute to improving the regulation and compliance in this sector.
Yeah. I think that makes that makes a lot of sense, and I think that is a good first step. So one of the other themes that come out were the need for speed versus the risk of superficial reforms. So I think there was 4 immediate improvement actions to focus on operational efficiency. Maybe you can talk us through those and what the potential next steps are.
Yeah. So when you talk to many people, some of our clients even, they are trying to maybe expand their services. There are lots and lots of things that are overdue. People are applying, people are waiting for that first inspection. You can't get to supply local authorities or NHS commissioners unless you've been inspected. So there are a lot of outstanding applications. So they're talking about publishing overdue assessment reports. That's the first one, increasing monthly assessments, clearing the registration backlog, and acting faster on concerns and notification. Because obviously the reason there's that channel into CQC for concerns and notification is so that they can react quickly. And if there's a backlog in that, then that's a serious failing in governance and compliance and regulation overall. So, but, again, I could be skeptical and say, but is this enough? Right?
Yeah.
but obviously...
Could always dive deeper,
Exactly, yeah. So they're process-driven fixes, right? They're not fundamental regulatory improvements in any way. But I guess it's a way of now, from a decision-making perspective and even from allocating funds, they need to put a task force perhaps to deal with these outstanding issues so that they don't get distracted from making those fundamental changes that are needed going forward.
Yes.
Because we could get stuck another year just clearing the backlog.
Clearing the backlog, but then
That's
what about
not
all
enough.
the new things coming in?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's always the concern.
So just simply clearing the backlogs is not going to be enough. And the assessment processes, there's an element of fitness for purpose, as was highlighted in the reports last year. They need to fundamentally address that. And one other thing as well is that even clearing these things, it does not necessarily guarantee better regulation. It's just clearing tasks.
Yeah.
And we know in our own business and our own projects that we work on, somebody needs to stand away from the tasks and look at the bigger picture. So we need clear, considered criteria really to sort of say, look, we don't want to rush. Of course, there's need to rush and get these backlogs out of the way. But actually what we need is consistent judgment, to sort of say, look, how are CQC going to work going forward? Right? Exactly. And the concern, obviously, that many people, even, from last night as I was coming from London and this morning talking to people in the sector, the CQC actually have the workforce capacity to deal with the legacy issues, but also going forward, and also to meet goals sustainably without compromising assessment quality. One of the things is, like now, I noticed an advert on LinkedIn yesterday where they were asking for healthcare reviewers. They put one out last year for adult social care. And again, the challenge is that there is a echo chamber, CQC, NHS England, local authorities. They create several bodies where there's a revolving door where people are moving between these organizations. And when I looked at that, I was sort of thinking, this is interesting for me. They don't pay you that much, so it's not about making money. But I would want to get involved in this, help actually to review.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not open. It's open to only people that have substantive contracts in the NHS. Just like the one last year was open. I did write an email last year to say, are you not making a mistake by just keeping this within the people that are in the LPA? Right? Because actually for us, we are not within these public bodies, but we work with public bodies, we work with providers, and we share the same goals. Right? Yeah. But there's an element of pushing certain people out or certain groups of people out because they don't belong.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big mistake. And hence people get skeptical. Because what new ideas are going to come from the same group of people that keep going through these revolving doors?
For how many years? Yeah.
So, yes, it's a starting point. But I think we need to see genuine
you don't want to get carried away,
interest in engaging all stakeholders and getting ideas from different people, from academics, from private sector, because everyone is working towards the same goals. I don't get that impression. What they are saying publicly and what they're doing is very different. And we should call it out for what it is.
For what it is, yeah. So one of the other themes was the genuine collaboration or reputation management. I know you've touched on maybe some of these points already. But yeah, Hartley did make some significant remarks and emphasise the key on stakeholder engagement. Even quoting the recent CQC events, they've had thousands of participants and so on. So what was your take on this particular theme? How do you... What were your impressions from what you read from what Sir Julian published?
I guess in a way that's what I was alluding to, just a minute ago. To say,
a lot of these points are.
You can do as many listening exercises. How many times have you heard a politician say, "We are listening," we are listening government, or we're listening party, but actually, what is the real structural change? Like what I'm saying, actually, if you are going to listen. But when it comes to reviewing, you only want people in your club. These are closed clubs.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be skeptical, but I can't help feeling skeptical.
Yeah,
right.
Because history tells you to be skeptical.
Exactly. Past experiences. You always go by past experiences.
And data.
And then when you see the same repeating itself, the past just repeating itself, then we're not learning anything. We're listening one ear, but it's going out the other ear, and that's a worry. So. Look, we need transparency, definitely.
Yeah.
We need proportionate representation as well, right? All the stakeholders that are involved, even in the private sector. Like now, most of the care providers the past few weeks have been doing a lot of campaigns to address systemic problems, funding issues, because a lot of care companies cannot survive. Every week, I know companies that are shutting down, but even the big players themselves as well are struggling to survive on.
That's when you know.
Yeah, so there are issues, right? So again, what are the expectations of providers? What are the expectations of service users? What are people's experiences of the framework, the regulatory framework, right? And the regulatory approach should not just focus on enforcement, because people still fear CQC. They're a failing organization which is trying to recover, but you have to address the fact that people find them unapproachable. They're unapproachable, right? And that's a big issue. And we should focus on quality improvement. Regulation should be about quality improvement, protecting service users, protecting providers and supporting providers, not just enforcement. I think there's more leaning towards enforcement, right? When you talk to people, when you deal with people, people are reaction. It's a reaction. How many times have people say to you, "Oh, we have this list. We have to do this list." It's almost like common sense goes out of the window when it comes to, which boxes do we need to tick?
Yeah. There's a lot of that, and we touched on that last week as well.
Exactly. So it's still very much a tick boxing exercise. But again, if Sir Hartley is talking about co-designing and engagement, I think we need to give him that benefit of the doubt, and
then wait and see. Yeah.
And they have said that they're going to be holding more stakeholder events, and I want to attend every single one of them, and I want to shout as loudly as possible, because I think we need to do that. We need to make our voices heard. People need to be represented. We need to encourage even our clients to attend these events.
Yeah.
And we are happy to raise concerns on their behalf as well for those that cannot attend. And I think it's really crucial. So stakeholder voices must be included in the decision-making process. It's not just about gathering feedback and then we return to a predetermined framework, because that's the impression you get. I've been in health and social care now for over 25 years, and every health secretary, health and social care secretary, they come with their own ideas on what they want to do, and it's almost like we're going to collect the data that helps us achieve what we wanted to do anyway, right? So I think we need to stop that, providers, staff, service users need to contribute meaningfully to that final framework. I mean, now, because one of the things is what happens with the single assessment framework. There don't seem to be a change in direction. It still seems like the single assessment framework is going to carry on.
It's going to stay.
But actually, was it thought through properly? How do you have a single assessment framework for all sorts of providers that have different organizational needs?
And with a new person coming in, you'd surely expect some sort of review on that.
Exactly. But you have something called initiative fatigue, where you keep coming up with things and never see them through. But if they are half-baked sometimes as well, that is the challenge. That's to say you can't leave them running just because we have them. Then you're locking yourself into something that is not working. And I guess that's the bravery that, say, Hartley is showing, to say, look, we put our hands up. Things are not working. We need to rethink. Whether the single assessment framework stays long-term, I doubt that very much, because the premise that it was built on, that's what led to the lack of fitness for purpose.
Not thought through.
There you go.
Yeah. So another theme to sort of I think discuss, like I think again we've hinted at in some of the other points, is about the real test. Accountability and measurable change. It's all good coming out with the statement when you're newly appointed, but like you say, time will be the biggest teller.
Exactly.
In terms of what happens. So maybe you could just summarise that and maybe some of the points in terms of what you thought was maybe missing.
Look, we can't be too harsh, right? I think it's a well-articulated strategy.
Yeah.
And I think it's got all the right buzzwords, as bad as it sounds. It almost sounds like a political speech, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right, but
it will have been a well thought through.
For us in the sectors, any sort of movement is going to cause a lot of disruption. And you and I know that change in any sector, but particularly in health and social care, with the existing challenges, any change, people are going to start getting worried now. That's why we rushed to come to the studio this morning to actually start talking about this, because over the weekend, I'm sure we'll be talking to more people, and we need to get those conversations going, because people are going to be asking you, so, does this mean that single assessment framework is going away now. So is the new framework, what is this CQC way? When is it going to start? When is it going to be finalized? Because there's that nervous anticipation, which is never a good thing, right? No. In a sector like this. How will it track what's going on? Are we not going to be left out? Are they going to make some changes that we need to do? Are you going to tell us? Because for us, actually, as providers of services to service providers, it's our duty to keep up to date with what's going on with any regulator and then translate it into how we build our technological, innovations, the software that people use, the guidance that we give to people. There's pressure on us as well to do that, right? Then also the oversight, because it's not quite clear, actually. Cambridge University, some academics at Cambridge University put out a paper last month where they were talking about, asking a question, actually a rhetorical question, to say, who polices the regulators, right? And it's a common now trend. I was at UCL the past 2 days, as you know, in their Department of Engineering, and I work with people that are, Professor Julius Mgwagwa and others that are in STEP, looking at public policy and innovation. And that's every week I'm going there to, they've got students on these courses on public administration and public health. And there's worry to sort of say, look, the regulatory framework is weak. So who then takes charge of policing regulators so that they can be trusting regulators? So I think Sir Julian as well, what he needs to do is to commit to external oversight. And I don't think we should create another body. Perhaps that would be worrying.
That body will need management.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
But again, it's also say, look, there's significant change in NHS England. There's significant change in CQC. And I think the government now also needs to tell us as well what they think of regulators. The oversight is important, because if we lose trust in the regulators, then what do we have?
And they're not,
accountability-wise, right?
For, yeah.
What if the CQC again fails to deliver these improvements? Yeah. I'm not doubting their capability to change things. It's definitely the right time to make changes like this. What about independent scrutiny as well on the regulatory effectiveness? Because previously, a lot of service providers cannot speak like we are doing, because they're worried. Obviously, you can't speak publicly about your regulator and perhaps mention the obvious things, but we can, because we are not. We're working outside of the regulatory framework, although we use the regulatory framework, and we try to make sense of the regulatory framework and then help health and social care providers put it into practice. Yeah. Right. But there's need for that independent oversight, wherever it's going to come from, whether it's the parliamentary committees, because we've got the parliamentary committees, which is, again, what led to Amanda Pritchard resigning, because she performed really badly in 2 parliamentary committee hearings. And, it was untenable. It was no surprise at all when she resigned. Anyone in that position, actually, it becomes an untenable position. So I think the Parliament needs to do more, because Parliament represents the wishes of the people, right? And they can bring any of these regulators forward to challenge them, to ask for improvements, and ask questions that perhaps we can't ask on the outside. And the worry, obviously, is the situation that Sir Julian Hartley is addressing is about delays. Yeah. Right? What if they persist again? What sort of timelines? So what's lacking is clear metrics, measurable. Sort of said, look, constantly talk about smart goals, isn't it?
Yeah. You don't need to do. Yeah.
I'm sure they've got something in the background that they are thinking about to say, look, they'll put more information out as we go, and we're looking forward to see how it pans out.
I think milestones are important, but also the other point is about, if you've got the same team, yes, the leaders change. Yes. But if you've got the same team, the same resources, and you've got a backlog to clear, and like you said earlier, new foundations to build, that'll be interesting as well. Yeah. Is it going to require more money spend? Are they going to have to get some external outsource support? Because all those things are going to be interesting, because until they find maybe better processes or ways of automation maybe to help clear some of these backlogs, you sort of think surely they're just going to fall into the same pitfalls as the previous administration.
Definitely, yeah.
So, right, I think we've covered a lot of the key themes, some of the main talking points. Yeah. that we've seen, like I said, particularly on socials, but even in different news outlets and newspapers this week. But in terms of final thoughts, as someone who's passionate about the industry, what are your final thoughts, and what are you looking forward to in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, his vision is very clear. It's well articulated, and it's really necessary right now where we are to acknowledge regulatory failures and hold hands up and say, look, we need a new path for reform. But obviously, 3 issues for me that really matter. To go just beyond words and key buzzwords. So when we, for us actually, and the people that we work with, service providers, we need real measurable improvements. We not just tick boxing exercises. So if they talk about core design, it needs to be meaningful, and because otherwise it just becomes a meaningless exercise where we are ticking boxes.
Yeah.
And nothing comes out of it. Then the third thing as well is accountability. The accountability of CQC themselves as a regulator, that oversight is crucial. And I think it falls back again, maybe the health secretary would need to clarify the position. So say, look, how do we make sure that regulators are accountable? Because 2 big regulators failed dismally. And we want to see real change. We want to see clear oversight. So say, look, what's going to happen with Ofsted? What's going to happen with CQC? Who's going to have oversight? Are they just responsible for implementation? Do they have a separate wing for policy making and another one for implementation? Then one wing is dealing with maybe clearing the backlog, and the other ones are carrying on. I'm sure they have a plan. It's not clear yet as to what they're going to be doing. So there's need for genuine transformation and not just tick boxing. Or a regulatory refresh, new team, everything looks new, but then we have the same sort of system carrying on, the same sort of people carrying on as well. And stakeholders, I think they need to look broadly. The idea that these government bodies are the only ones that are capable of making changes. I worked in health and social care for a long time. It's never like that. I remember when I was working in cardiology in the early years as a nurse, most of the changes that we were implementing were coming from the aerospace engineering. We're learning from different departments, translational research. Actually, what are they doing in one sector can influence other sectors. You need people with different backgrounds, and people that have never worked at NHS England or CQC. Sometimes they are the best people to bring in to ask them their experiences. You can't. We say with patients, nothing about me without me. Right? How do regulators regulate without genuinely involving people? So I'm hoping that this hearing activities that they want to do, actually they're serious about it.
And very inclusive.
And inclusive, and they're going to actually bring people in and reviewers as well. Why just limit it to people working in the NHS and people working in local authorities? I think it's that premise actually creates a club. We used to talk about the old boys club back in the days to say, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
They are not the only ones that have good ideas.
No, exactly. Yeah.
They need
like you said, even people from other sectors and things like that.
So it looks like a closed shop. So that's what I'm saying. Yesterday, you're looking at adverts on LinkedIn from CQC asking for reviewers, and it's a closed shop. But at the same time, you're also reading an article that has been put out by the CQC chief executive saying he wants to be inclusive. So,
which one?
I think I'm entitled to be skeptical, right? When I see that, I'm sort of thinking, I don't know what to believe here. Do I believe what I'm seeing, or do I believe what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah. That's a good way of I think summarising it there. So look, we're very keen, as Richard said earlier, to hear from people within our network. I know we've got some newsletter articles going out early next week on some of these issues. I'm sure these will definitely be included. But we're keen to open up a discussion really and prompt some engagement from everyone. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What can an organisation like ours maybe support you with in terms of digesting the information and the public announcement from Sir Julian? We'll be thinking of our own ways with our own team, but we're always keen to hear what people have to say. We'll see what next week brings. Probably be another big announcement that we'll have to quickly put something together for. But I think this is very much a watch this space sort of bulletin, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Look, I'm glad that there's an impatience, I guess, because even West treating, there was a big backlash last week. When the NHS England CEO resigned,
yeah.
Say, oh, did he force her out or whatever? Yes, there's always going to be skepticism as well on the other side to say, does the government want to take more control of service provision? But obviously, they're the ones that were elected by the people.
Yes.
And they have that agency to radically change things. And you can't blame them for that. So I'm all for that. And I think we need more of it. We need to completely disrupt how regulations are made, how these regulatory bodies are made up. And we need to demand more accountability. There's nothing wrong with that at all. They're public servants at the end of the day. And we need to see meaningful change, not just talk and putting people in rooms where we endlessly talk about things, but nothing meaningful ever comes out of it. So we need action. But at the same time, I think it's a good start. I think it's a very good start. And the combination of that and the fact that also there are issues around funding, the fact that we need to adopt, even like everyone is talking about AI now, everyone's talking about AI is a solution for everything. But actually, if basic regulation is failing, how do you regulate even the introduction of AI tools into health and social care? You're going to cause even more chaos and damage if things are not actually regulated properly and if things are not introduced properly and if CQC have huge backlogs. So everything needs to be done now, somehow.
And that's why I think that resource question is going to be interesting to see how they handle it. But like you say, I'm sure there'll be a plan or a draft plan, at least at this stage, on how things are going to change. So, we will keep everyone updated. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Fantastic. See you soon.